before, but it's a great opportunity we have to hear from him every time because of his experience and his background. Just a few things about John. He's an associate professor here at BYU, and he teaches courses in entrepreneurship, e-business, and management consulting. And he's the associate director of the Center for Entrepreneurship here at BYU. So John started out in the industry. That's one thing that separates him from for example, last week's lecture, Dr. Little. He's been in education and academia for a very long time, and John has kind of the industry approach to things. So you'll be able to see learn a lot from that different approach. So one of the things he's done is he was president of a publishing company in Seattle, Washington for several years, and later had the experience of being part of a company that went from nothing to an initial offering on the NASDAQ stock market. So are you going to talk a little bit about that? Mm-hmm. So you'll learn a lot about his experience, learn how he made some money, and you can too. So let's welcome John Richards.
Thank you. All right, can you hear me yet? Let's see. Wireless?
Fell down.
Oh, it fell down. That's why you can't hear me. All right, we'll get that fixed. All right, can you hear me all right now? Is that okay? Okay. First of all, let me get my presentation up on the board. And we'll do that. And I'm going to share a little bit about this semester, first of all. We've got an incredible lineup. What we're trying to do, this is for me, one of the most exciting semesters we've ever had in this lecture series. We are trying to get you with people that have done it before or that are in the middle of doing it in terms of starting web companies and understand how to apply e-business in the management and business world. So some of our, after today, we're going to hear from the CEO and co-founder of Athena Health, Jonathan Bush. Then we're going to go through a number of folks. Some of the other highlights we have here. Adam Edmonds was a student just like you, sitting in a seat just like you. Now has a company worth somewhere around $25 million. And he's going to come share that story with us. And then Paul Allen is going to come speak to us, web guru, founder of My Family and Infobases, and now his new company's Family Link. And Jay Bean will come in, Orange Soda, a red hot company here. That is helping small and medium-sized businesses get on the web and be more productive on the web. And so it's exciting what they're trying to do. We'll have no class that one week of November 19th because of eBusiness Day. We're going to be asking you to attend eBusiness Day as you read in the syllabus, and there'll be more about that later. There's no class the week of November 26th due to Thanksgiving. And then our final two speakers are two of the hottest companies in the nation. They're a way to deliver very large files over the internet, and that applied to HD video with no buffering. And those that might know what that means, that's a pretty significant development. One of the co-founders of Novell is the technologist behind Move Networks, and John Edwards is the CEO, and we're going to hear from him. So that's really exciting. And then Josh James, the founder and CEO of Omniture, the fastest growing public software company in the United States, a company that's done tremendously well, dominates the web analytics industry, which is the industry to measure the usage of websites and all the myriad of facets that entails. It's extremely exciting and complex in terms of what you can find out about users and websites by using their products. That company, he actually asked to come back. He loves to be here. It's an exciting day when he comes, and all of these folks will stay after when they speak, and with those that want to have a little refreshment, sit in kind of a circle and just have a chat with them after they give their formal lecture. So that's the semester that we've got coming to you, and I'm very excited about it. All right, so my name is John Richards. I'm the managing director of the eBusiness Center here at BYU. I'm also an associate director of the Entrepreneurship Center. And today we're going to talk about web business ideas. And what I want to be the end result today is that you get stimulated to think up great ideas to launch. That's what we want to see happen. The eBusiness Center later this semester is going to sponsor the Web Business Idea Competition. where you can win prizes and be recognized for your great web business idea, maybe be matched up to capitalists that will fund your idea and actually launch it. And that's some of the goals we've got. And also today, I want to just give you some fundamentals so that you can recognize the web business models that are being applied by that list of speakers and how they came up with their idea, how they then got a business to wrap around that and actually launched it and achieved the success that they're either achieving or have achieved. So that's kind of the goal today. So we're going to have some fun talking about it. Do you remember last week's lecture? Who spoke? Dr. Stephen Little. He's the director of the eBusiness Center. He's a PhD in computer science. That is in the Information Systems Department here in the Marriott School of Management. What 3 significant e-business concepts did he teach you about? Okay, hand up one at a time.
Moore's Law.
Moore's Law. Okay, what's Moore's Law?
Basically, this guy back in, I think it's the 60s or something, came up
Okay.
with this law where every 18 months that the size of the transistor will be cut in half, and therefore the width of that.
Okay, so some guy in the 60s came up with this idea that every 18 months the capacity or speed of transistors would double. Okay, and that somebody was Gordon Moore, who's the founder of Intel. Okay, and ever since then, approximately 18 months apart, there's a doubling of many technological issues at hand. One is the number of transistors on a chip. Also, speeds of access and other hardware-related issues keep getting doubling. Matter of fact, right now, the hardware is ahead of the software in power and capacity and technology, and software is still trying to catch up with what we achieved in hardware. So that's Moore's Law. Okay, very good. What was the second one that he talked about? Yes?
Metcalfe's Law.
Metcalfe's Law. What's Metcalfe's Law? All right, way to read it from your notes. It's good that you take notes. Okay, so Metcalfe's Law is that the value of a network increases by the square of the number of users on the network. This is a very, very, very important law because it is responsible for most of the wealth creation and most of the exciting things happening on the internet in tandem with Moore's Law. It's very, very important. Matter of fact, in my personal life, any of the wealth that I've gained due to the internet, my investment in or my activity in the internet, has come because of the application of Metcalfe's Law. And you remember, what was one of the prime examples of Metcalfe's Law? Anybody remember what he gave as an example? The telephone network. So if there was just Alexander Graham Bell and Watson on the network, the relative power of that network is 2 squared, 4. But if you have 300 million people in the United States all having access to the phone network, that's 300 million squared. That's a lot more powerful, isn't it? Right? That's true of the interstate highway system with the exits and on-ramps being the equivalent of a node point on the network. And that's those 2 networks alone, the phone network and the interstate highway network, are largely responsible for the United States emerging to be the world power that it is because of communication and transportation being applied in a networked way. Now, the most powerful example, of course, of all time of the network effect is what we're living through right now, which is the Internet. The Internet is the fastest growing medium in the history of the world. Nothing's ever grown as fast or had as many users come aboard a network as the Internet, and it's tremendously rapid. Matter of fact, do you have any idea how many people are on the Internet now and have access to it worldwide? There's 6 billion people in the world. How many people have access to the Internet? Any guesses? How many? Raise your hand so I can hear. What was your?
A billion?
No, more than a billion.
2 billion.
Okay, more than 2 billion. It's 3 billion. There's about 2 billion through PC devices, but there's about 3 billion through what? Cell phone devices. It's tremendously exciting to see what's happening. And that's a huge, huge penetration, especially considering some of the disparity in wealth around the world. All right, so Metcalfe's Law, very important. Also called the network effect. And the last one, disruptive technology. Did he talk about that at all? Very important. It's intriguing. And that application of business is very important to understand that. You can be going along just fine. There's a leader in a marketplace, and a new disruptive technology comes along, completely disrupts the order of things. Who's the best and fastest company? And a company can be wiped out overnight. Literally, you can have a company being a leader, and seemingly overnight, the same management team, the same products are made obsolete. And that's an important concept to understand. Matter of fact, we're going to see something happening right now before our eyes in this area in just a second. All right, let me talk to you about ideas and opportunities. There are many, many ideas. If we took the next 45 minutes in this class and just talked about ideas you have, there would be hundreds of business ideas that we could come up with. There's many of those. But they have to be evaluated to see if they are genuine business opportunities that could really work in a business. Because many ideas that seem like great ideas actually would make bad businesses for certain reasons. Let me give you a top view level of how you start filtering your ideas to know if they're good opportunities. First of all, let me tell you about how difficult it is to come up with a bona fide opportunity. For every million ideas, it's said, about 10,000 of them could be an opportunity that might be poor, mediocre, or great. Of those, 1,000 are worthy to be put into some form of business plan where the idea people actually put down in writing, here's the plan for a business around that idea. And then only about 10 out of those 1,000 get funded and get enough capital to go forward. It's very difficult to actually come up with an idea and go all the way with it into a business. But it's worth it. Let me tell you about how you filter ideas. A textbook way is to apply the 3 M's. The 3 M's are what separate an idea from an opportunity. Number 1 is market demand. Is there demand for the product or service that your idea would generate? And how strong is that demand? Obviously, the weaker the demand, the weaker the opportunity. The stronger the demand, the stronger the opportunity. Number 2 is market size. How big is the market? And that's defined by saying, if every person that could buy your product or service bought it, how much annual revenue would that be for your company? How much would they spend with you in a year's time? And how much would that total up to? Anybody have a guess at how big that number has to be interesting enough to start a company? Very good. But you've heard this before. $1 billion is the right answer. If you have an idea that's only 10 million or 100 million, that's not exciting enough for the marketplace because you're not going to capture 100% of the market, usually a very small percentage down into the single digits. Only if you're extraordinarily successful would you ever get into the double-digit percentage of market share. So being prudent, 2-3% of that total opportunity has to be an exciting enough number to start a company where you can make something happen. The third thing is margin analysis. You want to be in a business. Oop. I don't know if did that go off? Can you hear me? All right. Don't know what happened. I guess I'll stand over here. Is it back on now? Not sure. Hey, there we go. Okay, margin analysis is looking at how much gross or net margin. If you know about business, gross margin is your revenue from your customers, subtracting out what it costs to build your product or provide the service. And net margin is even when you take out all the expenses in the company. Well, those margins, the lower the margins, the thinner the margins, the worse the idea is as an opportunity. The larger the margin, the greater the opportunity is. So when you think of an idea, you think, okay, if this were a business, I would sell it to customers, how much profit, how much margin could I make when I sell it to the customers? The larger that number, the more exciting it is. The reason the world is so excited for internet and software and high technology ideas is because the margins are very high compared to boring old businesses. That's why that exists. For instance, the grocery business has about 4% gross margins and 1% net margins. That's very ugly. If you make one mistake, you lose money. Software has sometimes, and internet software models have gross margins sometimes in excess of 85% with net margins anywhere from 25 to 60%. So with margins like that, if you make a mistake, you can still be profitable and you have margin for error. So that helps you decide whether or not an idea is good, and that's called the 3 M's. My 4 that I like to add to this, and I'm not going to spend so much time on them, are I like to see a high barrier to entry. That when you have this idea, you say, how hard would it be for somebody to copy me and wipe me out after I've started my company? If it's easy, the opportunity is not as strong. Low capital requirement. Another reason internet and software companies are attractive is because you don't need a lot of money to get them started. If you wanted to start an oil refinery business, you would need tens of millions of dollars just to get started, which would mean you would need capital reserves even larger than that in order to get that type of funding to be put into place. But, surprisingly, 2 guys can be in their apartment, write a great piece of software, launch it on the internet, people start to use it, and that internet company can become worth more than that oil refinery. So this is why it's attractive to be in this space. Recurring revenue model. Businesses that can have a customer sign up once and pay until they cancel. So every month they're paying a fee, or every year or something where they just keep going as a customer, are better than businesses where you have to go find a customer, they pay once, then if you want them to pay you again, you got to sign them all up again and sell them again. Same thing if you have to sell them once and they never need you again, you got to go find another customer. It's much better to find a customer and sign them up on a recurring revenue model as opposed to something where it's a one-time deal. So the more you're like that, the stronger it is. And then, of course, does this business need a lot of people? If a business needs a lot of people, so if you were to make it go up 10 times larger in revenue, would it need 10 times more people or only 5 times more people? It's much more exciting if you can grow the revenue 10 times and only need 5 times more people, not 10 times more people to make that happen. If you need 10 times more people, that's a much weaker business and a lot less exciting to the business world. Okay? All right, so that's one way as you're thinking of all your cool ideas this semester, and I'd love to hear about any of your cool ideas at any time. I don't have office hours. I have an office here in the Marriott School. If you want to meet with me to go over your idea at any time and talk about it, just email me and we can make an appointment. All right, so here's 5 businesses related to BYU students that I personally have invested in. Okay? These are 5, and they are cool because when you look at these filters, they hit well in 4 out of 5 that I like to apply. And they're interesting. So if you look at them, they're kind of fun ideas. And Silent Whistle is now called Allegiance, so it's got a different name. And these companies, Zinch was a winner of the Best eBusiness idea, I think, last year, in the previous academic year, or whenever that was. Maybe it was 2 years ago. And so these are just ones that hit well in these areas, and that's why they get kind of interesting. Okay. Now, what are the best, then, internet ideas and models of all time? We talked about this last time. I had you thinking a little bit. Google, pretty cool one, you said. You said eBay. Netflix is a pretty neat idea. It's done very well. Continues to pound all their competitors. There's Homestore.com, Oracle, Cisco, Amazon.com. These are some really interesting and impactful ideas. DoubleClick was an interesting way of capitalizing on advertising on the internet in the early days and struck on some very interesting things. Okay, and of course Yahoo. Let me tell you now what's going on right before our very eyes in terms of disruptive technology and application of some of these principles. 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago, Google turned 10 years old. From the 10th, I think it was September 4th of 1998, that it applied, and September 7th that it was given status as a corporation. These two kids from Stanford started the company. Their first investor gave them $100,000. They didn't have a bank account set up for 3 months, so they couldn't deposit the check. They finally went and got a bank account, deposited the $100,000. That was their first investor. That guy's made somewhere around $5 billion, by the way, right now, off the $100,000. And so that's how it works. So let's talk about Google just a little bit. It's quickly emerged as the most successful business on the web. Many expected to dominate the next era of computing as thoroughly as Microsoft dominated the era of personal computers. Microsoft was a disruptor with the PC revolution in the early 80s. They started around 77, 78 as a company. And at the time, the dominant computing systems were mainframe computers or mini computers. And then Bill Gates and Paul Allen, two young kids, literally in high school, recognized that personal computers or mini computers were going to be, microcomputers were going to be important. And so they started a software company to provide software for microcomputers, called it Microsoft. Microsoft ended up dominating the computer industry and nearly knocking IBM, a monolithic company, International Business Machines, off its pedestal. It was a very interesting, exciting time, and that's a whole other story I don't have time to tell you. But from 1986 to the year 2000, 1986 is the year Microsoft went public, to the year 2000, that 14-year period, Microsoft had the greatest business success in the history of the world. The only one that could compare would maybe be Standard Oil, which is John D. Rockefeller's company, at one time dominated 80% of the oil industry in the world. Microsoft had an even higher percentage domination of the personal computer industry. And it created fabulous wealth. Matter of fact, $10,000 invested on the first day that Microsoft went public in 1986. 14 years later, by the year 2000, how much do you think that $10,000 of stock in Microsoft was worth by the year 2000? Any guesses? How much? 3 million. Billion, not 3 billion. That would be wonderful, but it's not 3 billion. But it was 5.3 million. So if you had put $10,000 in and just kind of sat on the beach for 14 years, you'd have 5.3 million for your efforts. And that's what happened to Microsoft. It was a very exciting time, created a lot of interesting things, and it was kind of a wild time. But then in the year 2000, something happened. Microsoft had too late recognized the importance of the Internet, and they flatlined. Now, they might not say it that way, but what happened was there was an emergence of other companies becoming important on the web and the Internet, and the most important of these is Google. Google is very scary to a lot of people, and they're very powerful. And let me show you the comparison now on how these look, how Microsoft looked at its 10-year date and how Google looks. So the number of tech companies with a market value larger than Google is only 3, and it's only 10 years old. And that's Microsoft, IBM, and Apple in that order. Google's number 4 already, and it's only 10 years old. Let's talk about some of these things and look at some comparisons. The company's age. Microsoft's 33 years old, Google 10. The revenue of the last 4 quarters, Microsoft $60.4 billion. Google, $19.6 billion. The revenue at age 10, of course, Google's at $19.6 billion because it's 10 years old. Microsoft at age 10 had $140 million in revenue. Adjusted for inflation, that's only $279 million. So if there's any doubt on the success of Google, doubt not. The revenue per hour, $6.9 million for Microsoft. Google's at $2.2 million already. Net income, $17.6 billion. $14.85 billion. That's how much they have after everything's said and done on an annual basis. They end up with that much free extra money. Employees, 89,000, 19,000. Now this is a really, really important number if you're looking at this. Google's a much more efficient company. Frankly, I would be jumping for joy if I had any company over $200,000 per revenue or per employee in revenue. That is a good company. These companies have been able to hire tens of thousands of people and have huge revenue per employee numbers. That's very exciting. If you go do that metric with most other kind of companies, especially those outside of the technology space, they cannot anywhere compete to that kind of revenue per employee number. And you can see why these companies are powerful and can do many different and interesting things. Their margins are very high. Because I guarantee you their average salaries are not that per employee, so they're doing okay. All right? The searches, after all is said and done now, and Microsoft has spent a boatload of money trying to get back into this game. And right now, July, just the month of July, Google had 48.7 billion searches. Microsoft only 2.3 billion. That's the relative influence on the world. And would it surprise you to know that Google has become the #1 brand of all time that has affected human behavior? So not just what we can recall like McDonald's, Coca-Cola, etc., but the brand, the company that affects what we do, how we think, where we go. Google far surpasses any company history of its impact in that. Imagine the potential if Google manipulated its search results to have us believe or do things they wanted us to do. Wouldn't that be interesting? I'm not saying they do that. If they're watching, I'm not. That's just a hypothetical thought, right? Okay. Okay, so searches per hour, 3.1 million, 65 million per hour. Interesting. Let's talk then about Google and a lot of other success stories on the internet. What is the common thread running through these major successes? They're all networked engines. There's that network effect again. Network software engines are successful on the internet. Many, many different ones. All right. Let's talk about some of the important changes happening because of all of this activity. Enterprise sales for software has dramatically changed. It used to be 20, 25 years ago, you could be a software salesperson and make $1 million a year selling software to corporations. That doesn't happen anymore. It's completely different. The deals were big, sales costs were high, there were long sales cycles. But then it changed to a dot-com era, and you started seeing a combination of click and mortar, meaning online, offline, and desktop software, web software. And then fully in full bloom came software as a service. This is a fundamental change in software, and it's important that you understand it. Software that is sold as a service as opposed to a product. Omniture is a software as a service business. Their product, Site Catalyst, is a software service that the client uses through a browser, the user uses through a browser, and the implications are staggering. It makes software an even better business than in the days of Microsoft, because you don't have to package up, put onto a disk, package up in a package, get through a distribution channel into a store, and sell your software that way. Now, software is distributed electronically through electrons over the web. And when you have to release a new version, instantly all your users can use the same version. You don't have to go through a massive customer help situation and getting them all with a new version of software. The software business is easier than ever before in terms of distribution and sales channels. And the costs have been driven down. It's changed everything. And now the creation through Web 2.0 tools, and Web 2.0, I'm going to talk about in a little bit what that is, has changed how you can even create software, where it's not so much about the underlying programming and software engineering as it is about putting together tools in a way that is useful to the end consumer. Mashup, social media, community sites. This was recognized in the mid-2000s by Time Magazine. Time Magazine names the Person of the Year each year. I believe it was 2006. Is that the year it was? Mid-2000s, one year, Time said the Person of the Year is you. collectively all of us, the consumer. Because now, the one change in the world more than anyone is all the people participating through the web and making a change to business, to politics, to society, and it's extremely powerful. And there's lots of opportunities emerging because of it. The information age is controlled more and more by the end consumers. Let's talk about the implications this has to all of us. One of the newest ideas is how you can use the power of the web to change how you work, how you start a company. And I'm going to share a little bit of a snippet from a book that I'm asking you to read this semester in the syllabus. You'll see that the 4-Hour Work Week. And we're going to see a quick little video now. And I'm going to see if I can get this to working. That's always interesting because I couldn't do it through YouTube. I don't want to hear the ads, so this one has plain ads, so we'll fix that in a second. All right. So this book, The 4-Hour Work Week, is an assignment that I'm looking forward to seeing your papers on what you think of it after you do its reading. So here's an introduction to it. Sorry, I've got to make it bigger. Not sure how I'm going to do this. Anybody? There we go. Let's get it turned up a little here for you.
A lot less and enjoy life more. Author Timothy Ferriss explains how to escape the 9-to-5 grind and work just 4 hours a week. Life doesn't have to be so hard. It really doesn't. Now, if you had told me that 3 years ago, I wouldn't have believed it. But most people pass off the food and resign themselves to 9-to-5 grind in exchange for sometimes, although increasingly less and less, relaxing weekends and the occasional 1 week, certainly no more than 2 week vacation. I came to realize that income really has no practical value without time. Here are a few simple steps you can take to escape the rat race entirely, not just live it. One of the first steps is the process of elimination. So to start, you need to consider something called Pareto's Law, more commonly known as the 80-20 principle. Because in order to work less and not have everything fall apart, you'll have to quantify the 20% of activities that are producing 80% of your desired outcomes. Also, take that time to determine the 20% of activities of people who are consuming 80% of your time. Use this principle for everything. Customers, work tasks, but also for personal chores, even for friends. The goal here is twofold. Number one, to find your inefficiencies in order to eliminate them. And then secondly, this is just as important, to find your strengths and those critical few tasks so you can multiply your output. Working every hour, every minute, from 9 to 5 with some type of fidget isn't the goal. It's simply the structure most people use. It's actually a legacy from a time that's already been obsolesced. In a knowledge economy, the more important thing is to shift from presence to performance, cut out static, all the things that consume time and income without contributing back, and focus on the critical few. You'll find that very few things matter. Another critical step, and a real complement to elimination, is what I call low information diet, or cultivating selective ignorance. Keeping abreast of all of your developments in any field will consume all of your time. It'll be all input and no output. You can't possibly digest all that information. So a more effective approach is to try to catch up when need be as opposed to keeping up at all times. A big part of selective ignorance is learning to let things wait. For example, email. So email is the single largest acceptable interruption in modern life. And it's a very convenient way of simulating forward motion without accomplishing anything. It shouldn't be a workspace. It's a tool. And one of the easiest methods I've seen for controlling email, and one that's become quite popular in Silicon Valley, is setting up a simple autoresponder, much like a vacation autoresponder. It says something like the following. You're all, in an effort to actually get work done, on testing the email policy, checking and responding to emails maybe twice a day at 11 a.m., 4 p.m. Pacific time, or whatever your time zone happens to be. If you need a response before one of these two times for anything urgent, please call me on my cell phone. Thanks for understanding this with greater effectiveness and efficiency, whatever it is. This gives you the breathing room to finally a single task and focus on completing the mission-critical tasks, the critical few, from start to finish without interruption. The third important tool I'd like to mention, and one of my personal favorites, is outsourcing life. To get started, though, we first need to replace the very obsolete concept of annual income, the very deceptive metric, with hourly income. And people are generally extremely hesitant to delegate or outsource because they feel they can do something free themselves. This is very inaccurate. So let's start with a very basic calculation of hourly time. If you make, let's say, $50,000 per year, cut off the last 3 zeros, not 50, and you divide that in half and you get 25. So you make $25 an hour. This is assuming you get 2 weeks off per year and you're working 40 hours per week. So let's just say on the very high end that you can hire a personal assistant at $30 per hour to handle one work day of 8 hours. So your cost per hour is then $5. So his or her 30 minus your 25. That means $40 per full 8-hour day for free. This also means you can take a 3-day weekend every week that will cost you $40 per week. I hire virtual assistants around the world, which only takes a few hours to help me with just about everything, from business research to reading email, cutting hundreds of emails down to 4 or 5 that I actually have to deal with, to travel, product development, purchasing, planning parties, even online dating. There are a lot of unorthodox and creative uses. Virtual outsourcing is only limited by your imagination, and the return on investment is astounding. 400, 500%, even for someone who makes $30,000, $40,000 a year. It's smart to focus on getting things done, but it's only possible when you actually set your not-to-do list. So once we remove the constant static and distraction and focus on the critical few, and never respond that way. So I hope you enjoyed the book, and just remember that outside of the law and science, all the rules we follow are rules we set ourselves. So set yourself up to win and choose your own rules.
So obviously, let's see, where was I at? Back on here. Obviously, that's an attitude, but one of the most interesting things that's happening there is the outsourcing phenomenon that's going on. Is this guy crazy? Is this book crazy? Well, I've tried to put it to a test in kind of a rigorous way. I've had some people that I'm consulting to read it and try to apply it. I've had others come to me on their own and tell me that they're applying it. And so far, I haven't found anybody that hasn't said it's made a significant impact to their life. And it's pretty phenomenal. So I'm still, myself, trying to explore this, understand what's going on. One thing that I have learned is that outsourcing is a tremendously powerful tool. And it's kind of gone through a couple iterations in thought. About 8 years ago, people said, oh, let's outsource our software coding to India and other countries like that. And they found out, well, it was a little tougher than they thought. But now with some of the new tools, some of the new environments, it's become much easier to do that. And now that's spread to all aspects of business and even personal life. Virtual assistants, scalable labor workforces, such as Amazon's service called mTurk. If you've never seen it, it's mturk.com. If you have any kind of human information age labor project, you can post it at mturk.com, receive multiple people from around the world that will bid to do that work for you and get it done at a fraction of the cost that would have cost you by having one of your employees or somebody here in the United States perform that function. And it's pretty tremendous and saved many, many companies that I know much money and gotten the projects done much faster. Those are the type of things happening. I literally met a 50-year-old fellow that read this book and hook, line, and sinker bought it and applied it in his life. He's making about $25,000 a month working 4 hours a week, and I've verified it. So it's pretty interesting and exciting to hear about how that's going on. And these are the things happening because of the technology application. Now, I want to tell you that in my PowerPoint presentation, we're not going to have time to go over today, I've outlined some of the most important business models on the internet. And these are them, the ways that you get to revenue. So you have a great idea, you think it'd be a cool service. Well, how are you going to generate revenue from it? And these are the ways. You can do it in a brokerage way, advertising, infomediary, merchant, manufacturer, affiliate, community, subscription, utility. The PowerPoint that will be up and posted for this class is going to have all of these pages spelling these out. It's a ton of information. I don't go over it in class here today, and you'll see that there's a lot of information on how you can actually extract revenue from your ideas and make it work in a real business and generate from this incredible idea that you may have. So you can see that that's on here. I want to take the last few minutes now and talk about how the web is shaping up. This phenomenon called Web 2.0 is actually a change in thought about how to use the web, not so much a new technology. A lot of times when we see something go from 1.0 to 2.0, we're thinking that the underlying technology is changing, and that's not true. The phenomenon of Web 2.0 is the way the user is in control. It's the reason Time Magazine recognized the end user as the person really to be recognized. And when you look at Web 2.0 and all the things happening out there, you can see that really we've got web applications, recommendations and filtering engines, social networking sites, and then content sharing sites. And the lines are blurred sometimes between different services. These are some of the leading types of companies that are creating a lot of the excitement, a lot of the utility, and also a lot of the wealth creation from starting new companies. Now, let me tell you, before I get into listing some of these, Kevin Rollins is the donor who created the eBusiness Center here at BYU. It's called the Kevin and Deborah Rollins Center for eBusiness. He has said to us, why can't the next Google come out of BYU? There's no reason not. He's the former CEO of Dell. He knows everybody in the hardware and software business, and he is absolutely convinced we've got the talent, the skill set, the students, the faculty to have the next great internet company come out of BYU. And I can promise you that 10, 15, 20 years from now, there will be a company, and they'll all say, I can't believe it. There's a company actually killing Google. And there's no reason, in the words of Kevin Rollins, Dr. Little and myself, that it can't happen right here with 2, 3, or 4, or 8 of you students coming together and making it happen. And so that's our focus this semester, to be going down that path. That's a lot of our activities and competitions with prize money are centered around that very concept. Let me skip this. You can read this later. But I want to show you how exciting this can be. Many of these companies, when you come up with these ideas, actually have an end plan that you can get rewarded for your labors. Would it be surprise you to know that Google acquired over 150 companies in 2007? Many of them little startup companies done by students at universities. And they're not acquired for a little bit of money. The rewards can be staggering. This is a list of some of Google's acquisitions. You don't know the value of some of them because they're private transactions. Sometimes we find out about them. Now, lastly, I want to tell you that here it happens in Utah. LogoWorks was acquired by HP recently. Mozy, by Josh Coates, a great entrepreneur here in Utah, started Mozy.com. 18 months later, sold it for $72 million. A lot of different startups to watch. Now, I'm going to skip this and you can go to it. I want to go on my last slide and talk to you about the hottest spaces right now. And I have 1 minute left. If I were to recommend to you where to focus on and what to be thinking about right now, and you are at such an exciting time, I would do anything to be your age right now, knowing what I know now. Right? So get that wisdom. Seek mentors. Facebook applications are hot, but even hotter are iPhone applications, and now the new Google Android platform application opportunities. Facebook's created a fund of grants. They will give you money if you have a cool enough idea to make a Facebook application. It's called Facebook Fund, and you apply for it and you get a grant. iPhone applications, there's many funds and many investors now looking for young, hip, cool idea thinkers with great iPhone application ideas. And even hotter than anything is the Google Android platform, and nobody knows how that's going to affect the cell phone industry. T-Mobile just announced yesterday that by the end of this month, the first phone with Google Android on it's coming out, and it's an exciting time in that industry. In the last 12 hours, personally, I received multiple emails from lots of people trying to put stuff together to take advantage of the Android platform, and they're really pumped about it. And there's been a lot of activity in the last few months on it, but there's real excitement now that it looks like we finally have something imminent to come out on it. So those are the exciting things happening. I encourage you to listen to our speakers. Today is the last day of hearing from faculty, Dr. Little and myself. From here on out, you're going to have some of the greatest people that we could bring to campus tell you how it works and how it's done. Thanks for your time.